What's up, boys? So today we actually had a losing day. We lost about $600 day trading, and these are the three setups I took, and I'll pretty much be going over them as well as a price action recap from today. So I always start on the higher time frame. I'm gonna go on it was the 4 hour. We had the 4 hour gap unfilled right over here. So as you can see, we had LRL at these highs on the 4 hour. Right over here, we had LRL leading up to that unfilled 4 hour. So it kind of was obvious that if we tap that 4 hour, shorts will be pretty clear, targeting this data wick, which if you go into the lower time frame, you can see right over here, we had a data wick down below leading up to that unfilled 30-minute gap. So right now, coming into open, I was kind of just scenario based. Now, we were inside an hourly gap right over here, and then we were also in between this data wick down over here. So my scenario coming into open was pretty much just waiting for one side to get swept and then target the other. So if we were to sweep this data wick and then get an IFPG, then I would most likely target that 1 hour intermediate term high or even that unfilled 4 hour. Vice versa, if we sweep out this 1 hour, then I would target this data wick below. Now, as you can see, coming into open, I'm pretty sure for the first few minutes we kind of just chop, and then over here we finally come up and sweep out this 1 hour high inside this 1 hour bearish for value gap. And basically after this, I told myself that if I got any rejection out of that gap, then I would take a short targeting the data wick. And as you can see, right after this, we get a V-shape 2-minute IFEG coming out of that hourly. So right after this, I placed a short position, stop loss at the swing high, and I was targeting this data wick below. Now, the trade idea, once again, is that we're delivering out the 1 hour gap. We have a V-shaped recovery, meaning we have a protected stop loss at this high, since this high swept out a high inside a bearish for value gap on the higher time frame. And then we were targeting this data wick, which is pretty low resistance. And as you can see, this trade pretty much got stopped out within a few seconds. Now, I feel like the main reason this failed was because of that unfilled 4 hour bearish for value gap above. However, the reason I kind of disregarded that was because we were about 200 points away. So since we were 200 points away, we were kind of far away. And as long as we saw that rejection coming out that hourly, I didn't really care about that unmitigated 4 hour above. As you can see, our drawn liquidity, which was this data wick, was still left below. Therefore, if we respected this 4 hour gap above, I'll be down to take shorts targeting this data wick. As you can see, after this, we kind of come a little lower. But after this, you know what we start doing? We start generating low resistance liquidity, which is a really strong draw on liquidity. So basically, over here, the trade idea was that 10 a.m. opens, manipulates into this 4 hour gap, and then we get some type of IFPG, targeting all that low resistance, leading up to that data wick below. As you can see, we come up here, and we basically tap the 4 hour for value gap right over here. And then afterwards, I believe we get like a V-shaped 2-minute. Right over here, we get this 2-minute IFPG coming out of this 4 hour bearish, signifying that we're probably switching the bearish order flow, at least for the short run, since we had this LRL down below. Now, I placed the short position. I placed my stop loss at the swing high. I targeted, I believe, like a 1-to-1. And as you can see, this got stopped out within a few seconds as well. Now, I didn't really care because this setup was honestly A+. We had a higher time frame delivery. We had a V-shaped recovery. We had 2 draws on liquidity, being this data wick and that low resistance liquidity that was just built up. And on top of that, I really believe that this 4 hour bearish for value gap was our final form of manipulation, since there was no more higher time frame PDAs that were unfilled above this. But unfortunately, we kind of just had the stop rate. However, at this point, we put in a bearish SMT, signifying that if we reject this area again, we can honestly then start the real reversal. So then after this, I scaled down to the 1 minute time frame, and as you can see, we had this 1 minute bullish for value gap. So if we were to inverse this gap, I would take a short position targeting that low resistance liquidity. And as you can see, we get that V-shaped recovery coming out of that 4 hour bearish for value gap right over here. So after this, I placed my short position, stop loss at the swing high, and I was just targeting a 1-to-1. And as you can see, finally this trade setup played out. So the whole time, I feel like my trade idea was correct. We had our draws on liquidity to the downside. We had a pretty protected stop loss over here. Unfortunately, this got stop rated. However, we still had that LRL, and that's why I decided to re-enter. I believe all these setups that I took today were pretty good. Apart from this first one, I think this first one honestly could have been avoided because of that 4 hour bearish above. And especially seeing how just price is moving. Like as you can see, we moved like 100 points within one candle. So usually 200 points is far away, but today with this volatility, 200 points was like 50 points on a normal day. So I kind of should have looked at it like that, and honestly, I think this loss could have been avoided. However, the second loss coming out of this 4-hour bearish was honestly a really good loss. We had a V-shaped recovery. We had draws below. As you can see, right after, we actually dumped our data wick. So my bias was pretty much correct with this data wick being left. And I had a feeling we weren't going to leave this data wick since like 80% of the time we always take it out whenever we leave a data high or low. So unfortunately, red day, I was down about 600, but I wasn't a big win streak this past month and a half, so it's obviously okay to have a red day. Once again, I really think the setups I took today were pretty valid to take, so I don't really care that I lost, since in the long run, I know my system is profitable. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap and learned something from it. And if you want to join my free Discord community, the link is in my bio.